Daily Words of God. Compared to previous ages, the work of God during the Age of Kingdom is more practical, more directed at man's substance and changes in his disposition, and more able to bear testimony to God Himself for all those that follow Him. In other words, during the Age of Kingdom, as He works, God shows more of Himself to man than at any time in the past, which means that the visions that should be known by man are higher than in any previous age. Because God's work among man has entered unprecedented territory, the visions known by man during the Age of Kingdom are the highest among all of the management work. God's work has entered unprecedented territory, and so the visions to be known by man have become the highest of all visions, and the resultant practice of man is also higher than in any previous age, for the practice of man changes in step with the visions, and the perfection of the visions also marks the perfection of the requirements of man. As soon as all of God's management comes to a halt, so too does the practice of man cease. And without the work of God, man will have no choice but to keep to the doctrine of times past, or else will simply have nowhere to turn. Without new visions, there will be no new practice by man. Without complete visions, there will be no perfect practice by man. Without higher visions, there will be no higher practice by man. The practice of man changes with the footsteps of God, and likewise, the knowledge and experience of man also change with God's work. Regardless of how capable man is, still he is inseparable from God. And if God were to stop working for just a moment, man would immediately die from His wrath. Man has nothing to boast of, for no matter how high man's knowledge today, no matter how profound his experiences, he is inseparable from God's work. For the practice of man, and that which he should seek in his belief in God, are inseparable from the visions. In every instance of God's work are the visions that should be known by man, visions that are followed by God's fitting requirements of man. Without these visions as the foundation, man would be simply incapable of practice, nor would man be able to follow God unwaveringly. If man does not know God or understand God's will, then all that man does is in vain and incapable of being approved by God. No matter how plentiful man's gifts, still he is inseparable from God's work and the guidance of God. No matter how good or many are the actions of man, still they cannot replace the work of God. And so, under no circumstance is the practice of man separable from the visions. Those who do not accept the new visions have no new practice. Their practice bears no relation to the truth because they abide by doctrine and keep to the dead law. They have no new visions at all, and as a result, they put nothing in the new age into practice. They have lost the visions, and in doing so, they have also lost the work of the Holy Spirit, and have lost the truth. Those who are without the truth are the progeny of falsehood. They are the embodiment of Satan. No matter what kind of person one is, they cannot be without the visions of God's work, and cannot be bereft of the presence of the Holy Spirit. As soon as one loses the visions, they instantly descend into Hades and live among darkness. People without visions are those who follow God foolishly. They are those who are devoid of the work of the Holy Spirit, and they are living in hell. Such people do not pursue the truth and hang out the name of God like a signboard. Those who do not know the work of the Holy Spirit, who do not know God incarnate, who do not know the 3 stages of work in the entirety of God's management. They do not know the visions, and so are without the truth. And are not those who do not possess the truth all evildoers? Those who are willing to put the truth into practice, who are willing to seek a knowledge of God, and who truly cooperate with God, are people for whom the visions act as a foundation. They are approved by God because they cooperate with God, and it is this cooperation that should be put into practice by man.